That's the we're laughing because Karen has a pre-live dance.
At some point, it's going to go live, and I'll be doing it.
Well, we can just do it. Let's just do it. There's it's the. Welcome, Karen, back from IEX Europe and not seeming jet lagged at all.
Thank you. I'm just realizing, as I say I'm not jet lagged, I realize, oh, my computer's not in and my battery is at 39%. So fun fact, if I disappear, it's because I don't even know where my power cable is. So I'm not jet lagged at all, Lenny.
Well, let's we'll power through, no pun intended.
No, for real. So I got back in. I guess I got home at around 7:30 p.m. Eastern last night. I did get a message that Dana's connection he flew from Amsterdam into New York before heading back up to his home in Maine, in Portland. And he didn't leave his connecting flight till 2 a.m. So
oh no,
Dana probably wins for the most jet lagged on the team right now, because that's a brutal travel day. So
yeah.
But yeah. I mean, it's good to be home, but it was a really good week, Lenny. Like, just really good, good. So.
Well, I have not heard that much one way or the other. I mean, a few people here and there like, oh, it was a great event.
I know. I was going to say, have you talked to him? So one of the things about this Europe event, which is different from North America, is that our team sort of scatters afterwards. It's sort of like, like Kara goes on vacation, Bridget's taking a couple of days off, Lukash stays overseas in Europe. And it's like, so we all are kind of scattered, like somebody turned the lights on and we're mice that ran away. So, so it does feel like you're a little bit disconnected. Listen, not only did we have record attendance, but we were at a 90% attendance rate. I mean, record registration, but a 90% attendance rate. We couldn't believe that, on day 2 of this event, where we usually see attrition, we had, nearly 800 butts in seats. And so it was an extraordinarily successful event for us in terms of attendance. And, just really extraordinary, anyway, like an extraordinarily successful event. And, as a team, we kept looking at each other and thinking, like, is there any real issue? Like, are any shoes drop? I kept saying, like, I am waiting for a shoe to drop, and no shoes dropped. So, like, we're really, I mean, it was like, this was a great event. So, so we're excited. And the energy was amazing. The engagement, because there were so many kind of, we say butts and seats, which sounds, it's like
it's a core metric, guys. When you're in the event business, butts and seats is a core metric.
Butts and seats is a core metric. So, but also what was happening was the engagement was incredible. So from, not only do we see it, when you're on stage and I share, the plenary talks, but you're seeing the questions come in. I mean, the questions is unlike North America in Europe, where in Europe, they really are asking questions, really more questions than we can answer in the time that we have. So just people are kind of riveted by what they're seeing and hearing, and they engage very differently in that audience. Most of them come in anonymously, which is an option that you can, ask your questions anonymously, but they're very, very freely asking questions of the speakers, which just leads for the conversations that we really need to be having. So it's really good stuff. I mean,
I heard that some of the AI sessions were standing room only. The level of focus on the AI platforms specifically.
So let me tell you about that. So, because there were two dynamics. I think maybe what you're even talking about is the demos.
Yes.
So normally at our events, demos are like, yes, we'll go and check out some demos. But this year, the attendance at the demo stage was busting through the door practically. Like, one of our most attended tracks were our 2 demo tracks, and that doesn't usually happen. So
especially from brands. Sorry, what I heard specifically was that the brands were there going, oh crap, we've got to figure this out, and we're really engaged.
And so here's what's happening, because obviously there was a lot of AI on the agenda, to the point where I'm the one who tags all of our agendas to make sure people can find it, and I had to come up with a different tagging system this year, because you can't just say AI, that doesn't work anymore. Now we have to get very specific with what kind of AI tag, so people can find relevant AI content. So there was a lot, but also on the exhibit floor, and also in some of our sponsored spots. And the difference is, lots of people now, like, everybody has an AI feature, But the people that have smarter features or smarter AI tools, they're starting to stand out as differentiated from everyone who's like, yeah, we got a chatbot. It's like not interesting, right? So I think somebody on LinkedIn had said this is like vanilla AI versus full flavor. So I think that's one of the things that we've got synthetic personas, we've got fraud detection, we've got AI interviewers, we have some really cool specific AI use cases. You can't just say we use AI to synthesize data because everyone's like, yeah, so do we.
Right. The car has a steering wheel.
Yeah, exactly. The car has a steering wheel. Great analogy. So, but it was things like, and I'll shout out a few sessions. The most popular, the highest attended session was a blue stage plenary, but by design because there's no breakout groups. But our speaker from a athleisure brand called Sweaty Betty, he talked about tinkering with AI, and that was our highest attended, even among all the plenaries. And it was really what he was explaining, very much like kind of the Green Book philosophy of throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. He's developing internal use cases for insights. He doesn't have a large team. And so his talk was called Tinkering with AI. It was really inspirational because he was just talking about how he's saying, let's use AI for this. Let's use AI for this. Let's see how to use it for this. And he was doing it in very innovative ways that were, people were saying, oh, that's an interesting use case. That's an interesting use case. So it was one of those, like, people were excited by the experimentation. And then we have, in contrast, like two other that come to mind as kind of rising to the top, also plenary talks. Florian Bauer was from Samsung. And of course, it's like a super, and like Tino Kalani from Lufthansa Innovation Club. Like, they're using AI at a higher level of AI use cases, right? And then, of course, I know you've talked to Michael Ramlett from Morning Consult, and talking about their AI and making their AI platform like accessible. So there's like big data AI that's happening, and then there's tinkering that's happening. And that really is the big takeaway about AI or the two big takeaways. Like, one, if you are a supplier or a partner that has AI features, you've got to rise above the vanilla steering wheel of AI. You have to get to the big cool stuff. You have to experiment, be bold, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's really the AI takeaway. And then, just take those chances. Another thing that came up that I do want to talk about, because I think it's really an important trend, is that a couple of different speakers talked about the importance of making sure, because we can get answers so much faster with AI, making sure you're asking the right questions and making sure that your research briefs, like, you have to really do critical thinking in advance. Is this the brief that I want to, are these really the right questions we should be asking? Is this really the right brief? Like, taking the time saved on the back end analysis and making sure we're kind of, boldly asking. So a woman from Nihan Sahan from Unilever, she quote from her presentation, "What if the real power in AI isn't the answers it gives you, but in the questions it forces us to ask?" Which was, I love that, super compelling, and I think a big deal. And then, like, of course, the third big thing for me to share with you is the thing that lands. It's the human stories. So, like, the combination of human insights, qualitative ethnography, like video, bringing human beings to life and then telling their stories, because AI can't do that as well as human researchers can. It's really, there was a lot of video storytelling going on about actual people and great photographs. And I'm not saying that synthetic personas won't be able to replicate some of that at some point. It probably can, but this right now, in this moment in time, the kind of human stories greater than AI, right? We had a gentleman from Foot Locker, and I'm forgetting his title. His name is Cheer Kim. Keo, I think is his last name. Anyway, working at Foot Locker, and he shared these video interviews with, like, kind of basketball culture sneakerheads, and they were talking about their affinity for the store and how they feel that they are part of this subgroup, right? This culture of basketball sneaker. And when they go into the stores, they feel kind of seen, and it's building this brand affinity for them buying their sneakers there because they walk in and the staff, they're the same as the staff, and it was really heartwarming to kind of talk about this subculture of, sneaker buying across the Foot Locker brand. And it was moving because it was these great video interviews shown on screen, just really like AI findings are interesting and might stimulate your brain to say, aha, but it's the video storytelling and the people that make you feel something. And so that's where we are. Like at this point in time, that's where we are. So leaning into the human element while we're leaning into the tech is critical.
Yeah. I guess it's something in the zeitgeist, right? I am increasingly convinced of that we have some unified, noosphere consciousness, right? Because
exactly.
these topics were coming up for me as well this week.
Exactly.
And so did you see this? My read right now is that, which it's kind of always been this way, right? That if it's just tactical, it's who, what, when, where, and how. Yeah, that stuff is just increasingly going to be just driven by either methodologically pure AI or even within the synthetic sample, because you don't need, it's a mile wide and an inch deep. You don't need 5 inches, right? You don't need a Y. You just, and it's okay. That's acceptable.
Yeah.
So, and I believe that's being mirrored in kind of macro things we're seeing around ad spend. Particularly within the advertising, because I think ad testing is a great example of that. So that's going that direction. It's just the next evolution of automation. So to your point, where the interesting innovation is happening, there's certainly the data synthesis piece of things, but the real is kind of the macro qual kind of idea of, wait, let's get to the why, and explore more deeply, and that is. And increasingly, folks are recognizing that the value is in first-party individualized data driving that, not just pulling from everything that's online.
And point in case to all this, and I'll as we go through kind of the stories, which we probably have to get because we're chewing up our time. I knew that would happen, but as I was going through them. So, I was traveling this week. So Lenny was kind of, curating and watching the news. And as I'm looking at things that came across Lenny's desk this week, I'm like, oh yes, and this and this. And I'm putting together all these pieces that are all part of this zeitgeist, right? So while I was getting this intel in one area, you were pulling it up another. So there's a few things I made a note on here where I'm like, you know what? Yes, actually that really tracks with what we heard. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's talk with the M&A news, because we might as well be leaning into where the money's going, right?
Right. I thought so. This first one I thought was really interesting. An Israeli company called AI platform Tastewise, 50 million Series A funding. Now, what's interesting is that they are. So we've joked like, oh, AI is not going to replace sensory. And when I first saw this, I thought, oh crap. Are they? No, they're not. But they're driving innovation by analyzing, recipes and people, posting on Reddit boards, et cetera, about food, and how brands are utilizing that as a front end of innovation feed, to look at trends in food, ingredients, et cetera, and repurposing. So hats off. They thought that was really cool.
It's really cool. It is really cool, especially because one of the things that my daughter, so again, I mention her a lot because she's, the epitomizes Gen Z right now. And she, she's going to, ChatGPT to help with recipes all the time. These ingredients, tell me what to do with them. And having a conversation with, her recipe partner. She used to get her recipe ideas from TikTok and Instagram Reels and stuff like that. And now she's like, I think I can do this better with my LLM assistant. So I just think the idea of, yes, there's mining what's out there, but then also how will these LLMs be driving some of that innovation? Cool stuff.
Yeah, interesting. Our friends at AcWest continue. Now with their acquisition of Safio, I think that's how you pronounce it, gives them a foray into Africa. So, Hugh and Keith,
Yeah.
We see what you're
Yeah.
cooking.
And when I clicked on this, I was like, there was just this concept of like kind of the idea of like why they're doing this. In my head, I'm trying to like, all right, what's your play here? And it's because it's not just to have, kind of global access, but it's local insights feeding global expansion. So it's very much like that's who they're targeting, is people who are looking to expand.
Right.
And now they'll be able to provide local insights for companies that are looking to expand. And I'm like,
yes.
Smart
And
play.
look, the African continent, is underserved in many ways, but by God, from a population standpoint, right? For emerging markets, I mean, Kenya, we I think here in the US we kind of get all the African, the spammy stuff, right? But that is a rapidly emerging, technologically advanced market, and with a massive population. So
good stuff. Some good product launches that
whole bunch. Yep. You want to?
Well, just Logic Group. Yeah, they are one of our big sponsors. They not necessarily at Europe this time, but Calibrate, a data quality and fraud detection system. And what I thought was interesting about this is, again, going back to Europe, much of the conversation that was happening, not necessarily on stage, but around the exhibit hall and, kind of, client to client, is like, okay, like we are all very aware of the data quality problem that we are facing, that, because it was newsworthy just a few weeks ago. And now we need the solutions to rise to the top. So I love this one because it's focused on research integrity. And they came out with a stat in this particular press release that they shared, when they conducted an internal evaluation, 32% of the completes were fraudulent or poor quality. So they kind of were very transparent about, here's what we found out, so we're now building something to fix it. Everybody has to be doing that. End of story. Because the brands are skeptical. They're not sure they're trusting anything right now. So if you to win back their trust, you 100% have to be doing this kind of work. So hats off to Logic Group.
Absolutely. And we were talking about this for years now, and here we are, this garbage in, garbage out, contamination risk for AI. If our future is driving AI training, which I believe that it is, we can't get by with the crap that we've had.
Well, isn't that in one of the, as I scroll to kind of look at your list, isn't that in one of the things that specifically talks about we'll get there, in your recommended reading, there was something that, is absolutely about that. Like, we have to be training, you have to be training the platforms with good quality data. If you're like, we've put, we're trying to build build our own proprietary LLM so that we can access it for future insights, and you have fed it garbage, you're already, you have set yourself up for a problem. Like, do not put data that is unchecked for quality into your system to build proprietary GPT. It's nope. Absolutely. You're like starting off with the shit system.
Yep.
All right.
So the Office Sports, you may not know this. We used to use Office Sports, their grip partner. They entered the competition, longtime friends. And this, we've talked about this example, right? It's like, oh, what they turn Excel and PowerPoint into an analytical package. And like, what? That's kind of boring and cool.
Yeah.
No, I've always been a huge fan of them and other things like this, because that is still where the bulk of our work is done from a deliverable standpoint. So cool to see them back in the news. They had drag and drop to Excel reporting for drag and drop crosstabs, which, that's still that's something that we do, that most people use, and it makes it easier. So hats off to Torben and Fred for continuing to championing the bulk of researchers who still use a Microsoft Office.
Pretty cool. Yep. So cool. Take this next one too, because I know L&E, full disclosure, right, about L&E, but you should go ahead and share what you know about what L&E has done.
And they continued, L&E, their Conducts platform, which they launched earlier this year. They keep expanding the capabilities. They're incorporating AI. The cool thing about this, people might not know this, James Hubbard, who is the kind of the face of this, he was an Apple engineer. So, and he was brought over, and he has that Apple mentality and is building this platform with that that Apple view of things, which I just think is really interesting. They just keep expanding the capabilities. So focus is on making it easier to recruit. They've added behavioral profiling, yada, 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 bringing qualitative recruiting at scale into the AI age. So, so good for them. The Qualtrics piece was interesting. Their AI co-pilot.
Yep. What I like about this, so that this kind of Qualtrics Assist for CX tools, helping organizations act on customer feedback quickly. And I think that when you click on this one is where it said, there's no point in asking for feedback if you're not going to do anything about it.
Yep.
And, you know, I smile because at Greenbook, you know, we do ask for feedback after every event, right? And we then go through painstaking measures to try to address the negative feedback. And we use it as, you know, like, oh, what can we do about this? How do we solve for this? Like it's a slower process, you know, because it's usually feedback around our events. And whereas, you know, yes, like we ask for feedback, we absolutely have to use it. So that really resonated with me. And anyway, so hats off to them for you know, continuing to push innovation in their ecosystem. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, they're integrate CX with customer with CRM, right? Yeah, which is always what it should have been. And they continue to do that. Speaking of the full AI, our friends at Quilt, a full ad testing and creative collaboration platform. So people still, you know, Quilt is just an interesting company. If you haven't listened to my interview with the CEO, you really should. You didn't pay attention to Quilt. They're doing.
Well, what's interesting about this is that, you know, yes, it's, you know, ad testing, et cetera, you know, highly active or highly accurate according to their stats. But what I read in there was about cultural reception. Like there's something about they've done something which I haven't, you know, I haven't dug into because I was just reading about this here, but to show how they're continually training on cultural data.
Yes,
they're making sure that it is that it's relevant to today, culturally relevant to today, whatever is going on today in whatever region. So I'm like, that's interesting. So it's predictive real world cultural reaction.
Yes.
So
yes.
Seems very cool.
That was really what their approach was, to take anthropology and make it scalable with kind of a digital ethnography model, and it evolved from there. So that was what they were trying to do. Let's some of these tech developments, because I want to make sure we get to the recommended reading, because some of these deserve,
and some of them are related. Like, so some of these you might need to, like, so go ahead and start the ICO one, you know, talk about that, because that one I didn't really dig into too much. But
the UK's ICO, it's kind of they're one of their accreditation boards around data, guidelines on smart tech data collection, smartphones,
or rings.
Yes, right. So it's kind of a data privacy and usage perspective from the UK. Increasingly, data synthesis, behavioral data, those you know, those things, those are feeds that AI does particularly well. So it was important to kind of put that data privacy framework together on what that looks like and utilizing them. So if you're doing work in the UK and want to leverage the anything besides attitudinal data, you should probably pay attention to this.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting because when I was looking this, I was thinking, like, because as a wearable wearer, I do sometimes think, do I really want to tag? Like it tells you to like tag things that it's coming up. So there's a reason why you're sleep deprived. You were just on a flight. Do I really want to tell it? Like you have this weird interaction with it where you're like, I don't know that I want to give it more data than it's already getting.
Right.
So the consumer is thinking about these things, even if they don't really know how to reconcile it. They know that to give it more data means it will be more useful. And yet there's something that gives them pause. So I like that we're doing some work in that area.
Yep, absolutely.
Good stuff.
This study on future work with AI agents. I mean, so from here on, we're going to kind of two extremes, guys. I think it's like, whoa, look at all this awesome stuff that AI can do. And then we're also going to cover a bunch of stuff saying, whoa, wait a minute.
Slow down. So this is a Stanford study that made the rounds this week. Many people who are tracking these sort of things probably found it, but Stanford's new SALT lab audited kind of how AI agents were, doing some things, automating, augmenting tasks, and it started to explain what some of these use cases are like, and what worker preferences are. And
Yes.
so it's the first of a few interesting studies that hit that.
Well, I'll tell you what. So one of the key takeaways from that was that the stuff that we think that AI should be doing, actually probably isn't.
Right.
So it is definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
Go back to our original conversation, the human, elements, et cetera, et cetera. We're starting to get a hand on this. And the next one.
Well, hold on.
Really,
staying with this one, because I want to get that next one.
All right. Because that next one's a doozy.
So, but one of the things in this study was, AI taking over tasks, and it does mention in there that frees our brains up for storytelling and collaboration and decision-making support. And it's all the things that we've been saying is like using AI mindfully frees us up for more critical thinking, which points to don't use the AI for the critical thinking. So now talk
and
about
then the next, because it makes us dumb, and now that's been validated. So another study that made the rounds, I forget the universities came out of, but the
I'll put up. I'm pretty sure it was also Stanford, but I could have that wrong. You go talk about it.
I think it was at least cognitive decline. They hooked folks up to fMRI and EEG and blah blah blah. Reduced brain connectivity and writing ability, and also memory.
MIT.
So
it was MIT. Sorry, I said
MIT.
It was MIT.
Okay.
Silly
MIT.
Me. People from those universities would be like, Karen, don't do that shit. Okay, sorry, don't do that again.
It's like, MIT. So very interesting. And I will be the first to admit, and I was really beginning to rely on AI a little too much. From a productivity standpoint, particularly writing. And was starting to realize I probably shouldn't do that. Read this of like, no, I really shouldn't do that. Editing, that's one thing, but putting the pieces together, the creative process, et cetera. No, because it literally, according to this study, makes us dumber. Literally.
Yeah. So there's a good post about this. If any of you follow Ethan Mollick, if you know who he is, you can find him on LinkedIn. He put a post up today. He's a Wharton School professor, and he put a post up today that didn't make it to this because I just checked LinkedIn this morning about this, and he's saying that it's being misinterpreted as AI hurts your brain. And basically what he's kind of talking about is the two things are working in tandem, is that, you don't want your students to rely on it for one use case, but you want your students to rely on it for another. Right. So it shouldn't do their work for them, but it should be a study assist.
Right.
So,
this outsourcing piece, I think that's the part where you're just doing it all.
Don't let it do all your thinking for you. Make sure you're continuing to say it is here to support you, not do your thinking. So when you're looking at findings, maybe come up with your own hypotheses first.
Yes.
And do the thinking first so that you stay sharp. Maybe outline, this is what I want to write about. Now you can maybe give me some draft text, or do the heavy thinking first.
Yes.
And then it can support you and you will be smarter as a result, but don't use it blindly to do the work for you.
Right.
So that's where we have to be really deliberate about how we use this technology.
Absolutely, 100%, and agree. I mean, I find myself now in a far more iterative process, and kind of collaborative, I guess. But here's the interesting question, which we keep getting to this, right? That we have to get our hands around. What is low value work that we could outsource? I will give you an example. This week, I needed to analyze some stuff. I already talked to people I was going to do working with, how I was going to do it utilizing AI. I would have gotten to the same result hours and hours later, doing it manually. So this was a process. There wasn't much value in that. The output was valuable. The process was not.
Yeah.
So making the decision to utilize that to do that, I felt that was good. It didn't, I had to direct it. Here's, to your point, here's the outcome I want. Here's how I need you to go about it, and go through that. That was useful. And it wasn't cheating, right? So to speak.
Yeah.
But that's where we are, I think, is figuring out where's this value from a cognitive standpoint. Anyway.
Yeah. And I think that we have to, when we talk about things like upskilling, it's not just upskilling by saying, hey, we have this tool available for you to use across our systems, at the enterprise level, but it's teaching things like this, like, okay, how can you best use it? And really helping your staff understand the best use cases instead of just saying, here, have at it. Being really, really mindful that we're helping future generations who are entering the workforce know what the expectations are, what appropriate use cases are, and really guiding them in an organization so that their brains aren't mush.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a couple things, just recommend readings that are variations on a theme. I think we can get through them pretty quickly.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, let's go fast because this article was a really interesting, this article, the one I'm pointing to in our brief next about how,
right.
The New York Times, when AI might take your job, here are 22 new ones it could give you. I really wanted to read this article thoroughly. So point in case, I went to AI with it and I said, summarize this for me before I go in. And what is useful information, for example, for an insights professional? And one of the things, it's like trust jobs are popping up. So you read all this, right? So companies need to double check AI's work, explain it to others, take responsibility for what's going wrong. I'm like, yes, this article was written based on everything else we've been talking about.
Yes. And it really is interesting. The idea of trust, wisdom, human cognitive capability, right? So these oversight roles that are more than oversight, it's more than a QA check. That's a piece of it. But really a managerial role to a great extent in a variety of factors. So it is interesting. We touched on this next one. Enterprise AI is coming, but it's about to learn all the wrong lessons from our friend Rick Bruner. Marketing effectiveness. It's about data in, bad data, having bad outcomes. So for those who don't know, Rick Bruner, he leads a group called Research Wonks. He's on the big brain in that world from a data standpoint. And
just there was a concept in here that's basically like about you're scaling up insights, but what if you're scaling up bad insights? And then you've got bad insights at scale or something.
Right. Yeah. Right. And one piece that he kind of hints at here too is like, okay, we can do live A/B testing with new creative like that now. Sure, we can test 1,000 ads in a few minutes because we're creating them. But the traffic underneath, right, is bad. So we can't, that it's just give and take.
Which is similar. This next piece you found was also similar, right? Are the AI models cannibalizing their own creations? Which I didn't have time to get into this one.
Same thing. Recursive models, right? That this has been out there for a while. That you can't train an AI model off of AI data. It truly becomes psychotic. I mean, about hallucinations. I mean, it's crazy. So if we have all this bot traffic online that is AI generated, these models that are just sucking in everything online, not only is it inaccurate data, that the models themselves can't do it. So one of the best examples I saw where they were doing this recursively with off of images, and each iteration of refeeding it, the image got just more distorted until it was like you couldn't even recognize it's supposed to be a human. And so first party human centric data, high quality is necessary for these things to work correctly. So buyer beware. So
this next one that you have here also, like, this is where I'm like, there were some connections to what was happening in Europe, and I don't remember which presentation it was, although I can almost picture the slide, so I apologize in advance. It might have been Tino's. at the Lufthansa Innovation Hub, but I can't, don't hold me to that. And sorry, Tino, if I'm misattributing it to you or whoever the speaker was. If it's you, type in the comments, when you hear this episode, it was me. But the idea that we really do need governance over our AI. We need AI strategy in our workplaces. So this one, AI use surges yet at work, but worries over AI's impact grow. So you should trust that your team, even though their usage, we remember when Lenny and I were talking a year ago, usage, people were slower to adopt, like everyone's adopted, like we get it. It's, it's happening. It's especially in our ecosystem, but despite rapid adoption, I think this study says only 22% of organizations have a clear AI strategy. Just 30% have formal policies. So it's inconsistent. It's causing stress. It's causing anxiety. It's causing uncertainty. And you need to make sure your team has strong, clear AI goals. So have an AI strategy in place for your organization. I'm sure AI can help you develop an AI strategy if you are carefully trying to do that work, but maybe outline your thoughts first and then ask AI to help you out, but I just thought that was a really interesting connection from this talk we saw on stage also.
Yeah. So you guys see the dots here, right? Where we say there's something in the zeitgeist. I mean, yes, the AI train has left the station long ago, hurtling along, but now we're realizing, oh wait, how do we steer it? What's this button do? What's the right way? So it's interesting. This is as we grapple with this. This last one, I thought was really interesting. They are tech guys, developers, et cetera. They created synthetic sample for their specific use case without even realizing that's what they were doing per se, and compared that to market research and came to the same conclusions of, it's like 60%. So it was good enough for some things, but not good enough for others.
So the headline here is, I cloned 2,000 Hacker News users to predict viral posts. So that's like, if that's not a clickbait title, I don't really know what is. So, but 60% accuracy in predicting which headlines would go viral. So that's interesting.
Right. So very interesting from a tech perspective, backing into the same thing, that we do, and recognizing, well, 60% is good for some stuff. It's not going to be good for others. So the interesting times. I guess that's it.
Okay, that's it. We're done. No, we have to tie it all together with a bow, right? So yes, interesting times, really great, smart thinking happening across the industry about all of this, which is the heartening thing for me. And also we're at this point where things we're reading are different than just new feature, new feature, new feature. Now people are finally, I think it took a long time for people to catch up. And now I think people have caught up. Mm-hmm. So as long as we kind of stay in this space for a while, which is our thinking is evolving at the same pace for at least a little bit before our next takeoff, I think we're at a really interesting time, because I do believe that the industry's brains have caught up with where we are. And now we need the tools to actually meet us, because we're thinking we want more. So that would be kind of my takeaway on all of this brief.
I think that's a wonderful summary, right? That we were all a little taken by surprise, for the last few years by the pace of change. And now I think very thoughtful breaks being applied, not in a we're not engaged way, to stop the train. We can't do that. But hey, hold on. Let's make sure we don't wind up like the humans in WALL-E. That's probably not the outcome that we want. So let's think through this a little bit. Although a floating chair is still pretty cool. I wouldn't object.
All right, I won't argue with a floating chair. As long as it can be maybe floating over water with a cocktail nearby, that's my wish. It can exist. It's going to serve me well. Let's be clear.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Happy solstice. Enjoy the longest day of the year. Right.
Yeah.
Today.
Can't wait. Big weekend. It's a big birthday weekend in this family. We have Tim Lynch's birthday. On Monday, we have my daughter's birthday. So this is what I typically refer to as birthday weekend. So,
okay.
And it might not rain in New England tomorrow. So barely want to say that out loud, but this might be the first sunny Saturday in like 3 weeks. I mean, 3 months.
Us too. Hence why I'll be doing yard work all weekend. Well, happy birthday to Tim and to your daughter.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody have
Yeah.
a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
We'll talk to y'all next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.